All right, we are now live on YouTube.
Okay. Shall I have 6? Do you?
I do just have 6 now. Yep.
Are you prepared? Are we ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, at this point, we'll call the city council meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder,
I am present and I am current. My physical location is in the city of Monroe, Michigan.
Whitman,
She's excused.
Iko Angeli,
He is excused.
Vining.
I'm here in the city of Monroe, Michigan.
Okay, Germaine,
Here in the city of Monroe.
Lamore,
He is also excused.
Mayor Clark.
Present, city of Monroe, Michigan.
Okay.
So our item is a closed session here to start this meeting, and we'll need a motion.
Your Honor,
Yes, Councilman Felder.
I move that we proceed into a closed session to discuss the matters of pending litigation involving the following parties: Tina Marie Carroll, Leslie Pompey, and Mix Harm, consolidated with other appellate cases with the same substantive allegations.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Felder, supported by Councilwoman Germaine, to go into closed executive session for the litigation update for the cases stated. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Germaine,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes. Okay, we'll go into closed session, and we should receive that Zoom invite from Mr. Sell. We'll see you over there.
Jody, I'm going to make you the host. All right. Jody, I'm ready to be host again.
I am in the right meeting, right?
You are. We need to wait until 6:15.
We're gonna wait that
Oh,
long.
good.
Yep,
Are we on Zoom at this point?
that's what time we posted it for.
Oh, okay.
Just a few minutes.
Do I have, was it 6:15? Is that correct, or 6:10?
6:15.
Okay,
Vince, I'm gonna go ahead and make you a co-host so you'll be prepared for
Okay, I appreciate it.
presenting if you need to. And Yakov, I'm gonna go ahead and make you co-host as well so you can present, okay? And really, the way the day has gone, this extra few minutes is not a bad thing, so we'll get it all straight. So are you set, Mr. Black?
I believe so. Looks like I can share my screen, so
Okay,
should be all set.
okay, wonderful.
I see that Rumsey and William have also joined, so we'll just wait our couple more minutes here before we start for the posted time and.
Okay.
What?
Ed, do you want to do the introduction?
Pardon me?
Ed, did you want to do the introduction when we get with the audit?
Oh, yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. All right.
Oh, Mayor, we have to go back into
That's
the
true.
special meeting and close it out.
Yeah, thank
Oh,
you.
yeah.
We do need a motion to go back into our regular session.
Your Honor,
Yes, Councilman Felder.
I would make a motion that we go back into regular session.
I'll second.
A motion by Councilman Felder, supported by Councilwoman Germaini. Go back into regular session. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder,
Yes?
Vining. Councilperson
frozen?
Vining,
She looks like she's frozen.
I think she is.
I think she is.
Yeah,
Um,
she zipped out. We'll have to get 4 votes, so we have to wait a minute.
okay.
Here she comes.
Councilperson Vining, will you vote yes to go into back into open session?
Yes, I
Thank
got
you.
knocked out for some reason.
Thank you. Germaini,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes.
All right.
So looking at our agenda here on the regular session, there was also citizens comment time listed.
Correct. And I see 2 attendees, but no hands raised.
I think the attendees might be, oh no, they'd be participants. So we'll see. Okay. Checked on that. I don't think there's any citizens comments. So why don't we,
Motion to adjourn.
motion adjourn this special meeting.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion to adjourn the special meeting.
Support the councilwoman's motion.
Motion by Councilwoman Germaini, supported by Councilman Felder to adjourn the special meeting. We need a roll call.
Councilperson Felder,
Yes?
Vining,
Yes.
Germaini,
Yes.
and Mayor Clark.
Yes. So we have about a minute and then we'll go into our work session.
I have 6:15, Your Honor.
Very good. As do I. So it's 6:15. This time we'll call our work session to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder,
Present, City of Monroe.
Whitman,
Excused?
Icoangeli,
Excused?
Vining,
Here, City of Monroe.
Germaini,
Here, City of Monroe.
Lamore,
Excused?
and Mayor Clark.
Present, City of Monroe, Michigan. So we have a work session. Clerk, anything further for you?
Nothing further for me, Your Honor.
And I'll go to Mr. Past Due, and you have several items, and I think we're going to start with Mr.
Yes, if I'll have Mr. Sell do the introductions for our fiscal year 1920 audit presentation. Ed?
Thank you, Vince. Thank you, Mayor. Before I do the introductions, I just wanted to let you all know that some of the documents that, mainly the financial statements that we put through MinuteTrack, didn't translate very well. So I did email those out to everybody this afternoon, and there was a hard copy put in each of your mail in the office. So if you're looking for something that you can actually read, that's where you'll find them. But without further ado, our auditors from Plant Moran are here. We have Bill Bricky, Ramzi Abdallah, and Yakov Black here to present the 2019-20 audit, and I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ed, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us tonight. So as mentioned, my name is Bill Bricky with Plant Moran. I'm the audit partner on your account, and we are here to talk about the audit for the year ended June 30, 2020. So really there's three separate deliverables related to the audit. We have the financial statement, which is the large bound document, the comprehensive annual financial statement. We also have the graph presentation, which we'll go through in just a moment. And then finally, we have our report to Mayor and City Council on the audit process itself. So before I get started, I want to make sure and thank Ed Sell and his entire team for all the efforts they put forth in this year's audit. Obviously, with the pandemic, it was quite an interesting year, I'm sure, with everything else that's going on. But Ed and his team just did a great job being very flexible and helping us kind of get through the audit in an efficient manner. So we appreciate everything Ed and his team did to kind of help us throughout the process. I just want to start off by talking about our main deliverable to you. So if you were looking in the financial statements themselves, page 1 and 2 is actually our main deliverable to you. That's our opinion on your financial statements. And the city did receive an unmodified audit opinion in the current year, which means the financial statements are in compliance with all the rules and regulations. We often refer to this as a clean audit opinion. I also always like to point out that the city does continue to prepare a comprehensive annual financial report, which is more than required by the state of Michigan, which just requires a basic financial statement. And so for the 20th year, the city will receive an award for quality financial reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association. So I think really this just shows the city's continued commitment to transparency and quality financial reporting. So congratulations on receiving that award again in the current year. So as we've done in the past, rather than go through the financial statement, since it is quite a large document, we have covered it in detail with management. What we plan to do is go through this graph presentation, which is really just a summary of some of the key financial information that is included in the report. So I'll turn it over to Yakov, and he'll take us through the graph presentation. And then after that, Ramzi will kind of conclude by going through our end of audit letter.
Thanks, Bill.
Yep.
Thanks, Bill. And good evening, everyone. First off, can everyone see the presentation on their screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so as Bill mentioned, I'll be going through a few slides which highlight some of the key financial information of the city as it relates to the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020. So the first slide shows a 3-year trend of the revenue recorded in the general fund. So as you can see, the revenue remained relatively consistent for fiscal year 20 as compared to fiscal year 19. And the largest source of revenue is property taxes. And this is the amount reflected in this red bar over here. And for this fiscal year, it was approximately $14.6 million. And this represents approximately 70% of total revenue recorded in the general fund. So with regards to property taxes, the city can't really control the amount of revenue because those amounts are really dependent on the taxable value of the properties within the city. The second largest revenue source is the state share revenue, which for this year totaled approximately $3.4 million. So let's move on to the next slide, which displays both a historical as well as a projection of the city's total taxable value of all properties. So here's a graph which shows total taxable values going back to 2008. So total taxable value decreased from 2008 to 2011. This was due to the economic recession. And as you can see, taxable value gradually increased from 2011 until 2019. And then going forward, you can see the trend of future years' taxable value. And the decrease over here is primarily due to the reduction due to the DTE settlement. This slide displays a 3-year trend of general fund expenditures. So total expenditures are pretty much in line with 2019. There's a fluctuation from 2018 to 2019, but that's really due to the DNR Trust Fund grant for the development of the River Raisin site. This chart represents the different categories of expenditures recorded in general fund. So as you can see by this graph, about 44% of city's general fund expenditure goes towards public safety. Now, it's just important to note that in this slide, the component of expense related to the retiree healthcare for public safety is presented in the debt service section over here. And the next slide will have that amount broken out to each individual functions. And as you can see, the next largest component of expenses relates to general government. And so before I continue, is there anyone have any questions or anything I covered so far?
Let's see if there's any questions from council members at this point. If not, we'll continue. Okay, continue.
All right, and so as I mentioned, this chart shows essentially the same data as the previous slide, but the purpose over here is to show the debt service for the OPEB bonds, for the retiree healthcare bonds, if they would be allocated to each individual function, such as public safety and general government, et cetera. So as you can see by this graph, once you factor in the OPEB retiree healthcare bonds, about 49% of city general fund expenditures goes towards public safety. Now, this slide, we show general fund revenues and expenditures, the trends over the past 5 years. And so I think the key takeaway from this slide is that, as the city's primary revenue sources, such as property taxes and state share revenue, have slowly increased, the city has carefully navigated the expenditures to address, funding needs, for example, retiree healthcare. And this is all done while still keeping total expenditures in check with revenue. So this represents really the city's sustained commitment to operating on a balanced budget. And as noted on the bottom of the slide, these amounts are excluding the DNR Trust grant activity. So the revenues and expenditures relating to the development of the River Raisin site are excluded for this particular graph.
I think one thing to note there that you see in 2019 and 20 is those are the years we started setting money aside for the DTE, effect of the DTE property tax appeal. So, while the revenues were quite a bit greater than expenditures in both of those years, that money has been set aside for future years to balance off the effect of that appeal and the settlement that was made.
A question for Mr. Sell to follow up on that point.
Sure, go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you, Your Honor. In subsequent years, we ought to see expenditures exceeding revenues as we pay those taxes back to DTE, or as we essentially spend that money that we had saved up. Is that my understanding until we come to a balance?
No, I mean, at this point, we've paid everything we're going to pay to DTE. They've been paid. The real effect of the appeal going forward is that their taxable value will be reduced, and we'll collect less each year in property tax revenue.
We'll just see a decline in revenue.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
If I may just add to it is, in the projections that Mr. Sell had worked on, through this year and the following 2 years, we think we should still be, have revenues sufficient to cover operating expenses. But when you get out to years 3 and 4, that's when we start feeling, see some operating deficits unless we make some changes with our expenditures.
So moving ahead, as it relates to fund balance, so fund balance is essentially the city's equity. There are 4 categories of fund balance recorded in the general fund. So the first is non-spendable, and this primarily relates to the real estate inventory, the high property north of Mason Run. And then about 2 million is categorized as committed fund balance, and this is for budget stabilization purposes. And then the next 2 components, or the next 2 items over here, are approximately 80,000 is assigned for future year encumbrances, and approximately 2.2 million is assigned for future reductions in taxable value as a result of the DTE settlement. And so once you pull those amounts out, the remaining balance is approximately 3.8 million, and this is categorized as unassigned fund balance. So while the city did experience an overall increase in fund balance for fiscal year 20, the city does plan on using approximately 1 million of fund balance in fiscal year 2021. So as you can see, the city has set aside approximately 700,000 to cover property tax loss in fiscal year 20, and then other projects and encumbrances make up the remainder of the planned use. So as the slide shows, the city does currently have fund balance. However, those amounts will decrease over the next few years as the DTE settlement impacts the city's revenue. So total fund balance in the general fund as of June 30th is approximately 9 million. So the green bar over here to the left, this represents total fund balance, but the more important item to really note is the unassigned fund balance, which is this amount over here. So as shown, the 2021 budget expenditures in the general fund is approximately 20 million, and unassigned fund balance as of June 30th is approximately 3.8 million. And this represents approximately 19% of fiscal year 21 budget expenditures. So it's a city's policy to keep that number at or above 15%, which is a minimum to operate. And so the city is above that minimum amount. Does anybody have any questions before I continue?
Questions at this time? Okay, I see none.
All right, so now I'll turn it over to Rumsey to cover the next slide as well as the letter to council.
Thanks, Yakov. Good evening, everyone. Excuse me. So really the first, or this slide, just wanted to kind of wrap up some of the points that Yakov has touched on. The first is the city has continued to kind of live within its means despite the loss of property tax value here. So really wanted to just kind of to commend the city on that. Despite this, the city has accomplished quite a bit. As we talked about in the last slide, the city does have an adequate level of fund balance, which will be important getting through the next 5 years as the DTE property tax values continue to be adjusted. The city is currently at 89% and 96% respectively for pension and OPEB, which is far above the norm, as you are aware of what you would see across the state. The city had effective budgeting in 2020, which you would see in the CAFR budget schedules and the financial statements. And we also noted during our audit that the city's water and sewer rates were in line with the system expenses. The city had an aggressive capital funding program, which resulted in the addition of 14.8 million in capital assets placed into service during the year. Now, approximately 7.3 million of that was in the form of contributed capital or contributed water lines. So the city did not actually have to pay for those lines. So that concludes the slides presentation. And at this point, we'll flip over to our end of audit letter, also known as the report to the mayor and city council. This letter includes 2 sections. Yakov, can you switch that over?
Sorry, 1 second. I thought I did that. Hold on 1 second. Can you see now?
Oh, yep, there we go. So this letter includes two sections. The first section includes the required communications that the audit standards require us to go through. So most of this language is boilerplate wording. So it's pretty standard language. And then the second section of the letter contains the latest legislative updates and informational items that are not necessarily specific to the city, but rather all communities across the state. We won't cover that area, but if there are any items in that area that you'd like us to cover, we'll dive into it. So heading over to, yes, this page here, if we did have any significant audit findings, this is where we would communicate those to you. So I'm happy to report that we don't have any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies or any internal control matters to report. So that's really the key takeaway. Again, most of this is boilerplate wording that it's basically telling you that we did not identify any of these issues. And if you can head to page 3, Yakov. And if we did have any difficulties encountered in performing the audit or any disagreements with management, this is where we would communicate those. And again, I'm happy to report that we do not have any of those issues. We do have 3 past adjustment or past disclosure items that we did want to inform you of. And these are the same 3 that we have had really going back several years. We don't deem these to be significant or material, which is why we're able to pass on them. The first is the recording of the MDOT grant, MDOT projects in the Major Street Fund that are currently reported in gross. And in our interpretation, those would better be reported in net. The second is the cemetery fund is currently presented as a trust fund, and the building authority is presented as an enterprise fund. And in our interpretation of the accounting rules, those would be better reported as a permanent fund and a governmental fund, respectively. So really, those are the 3 past items. And again, they are consistent with the ones that we've had before. And we don't deem these to be, quote unquote, big deal, which is why we're able to pass on them. And then lastly, significant findings or issues, we didn't have any. Again, so happy to report that there are no items to report in that letter or in that section of the letter. So that kind of concludes the items that we wanted to cover in the required communications, but I did want to open it up if there were any questions on this letter or if there are any questions on the second section of the letter, which is the legislative updates.
Any questions at this point for Rumsey or other members from RAN? I don't see any hands up. I don't see any council members. Please continue.
Well, that actually concludes the items that we wanted to cover.
Yeah, so Mayor, if I could jump in, I know we went through a lot of information fairly quickly, again, trying to be as efficient as we can here. But I think, overall, as we look at the, the financial results of the city, I mean, it's very clear that, you've done a great job kind of navigating through things at this point. I mean, when you look at the ramifications of the DTE settlement on the budget, there's certainly going to be challenges ahead, but I think you've done everything you can to kind of set yourself up to have time to figure out what to do about the future reductions. And, I think the overall operations of the city, you continue from a financial standpoint to be, in a healthy position. And as Rumsey mentioned, it really is kind of unprecedented to have a city with the pension and retiree healthcare funding levels that you do. So, really commend you on the efforts there to get those liabilities under control. So again, if there's anything we covered or didn't cover, we'd be happy to expand on that. And if there's nothing, we are all set.
One small point, Your Honor, if I may.
Please do, Andrew.
The DTE settlement and the reduction of taxable revenue is sort of a known quantity in terms of, we've been working with this for a while. We know it's been coming. The thing that's perhaps more surprising, and we knew that it was coming in the last couple of months here, is because of COVID, we have a loss in state revenue sharing. I was wondering what the overall percentage loss in that has been recently. We were all sort of waiting on what the numbers are going to be, and it looks like we finally might have them in terms of percentage loss from what's been provided in years previous.
Mr. Sell, maybe.
Yeah, I'll take that. I guess I'll take it by fiscal year. COVID hit during this fiscal year that they're reporting on. And really the only effect there is that we get a revenue sharing payment in June and in August that are reported as part of this fiscal year's financial results. The statutory portion in the June payment didn't change. That's set in statute, and there had been no legislation at that point to change it. The constitutional amount wasn't down a lot. It was down, obviously, but you know, that's based on what overall sales tax collections were in March and April. So that one was down, but it wasn't down shockingly compared to what we thought it might be. So we did pretty well there. August, the payment there, again, the constitutional amount was down a little bit, but not a lot. But the state on that payment did eliminate the statutory portion of it. But in exchange for that, they gave us a CARES Act payment from the federal CARES funding, equal to 1.5 times that payment. So while we didn't get that payment and it couldn't be reported as part of our fiscal year 2019-20, we did get it. It ended up being around $80,000. That'll be because of the way it's done and the way it was received. It'll be reported as part of our 2020-21 fiscal year, and that was about $80,000. So going forward, you know, when they did the August revenue sharing conference, you know, hopefully they're right, but our revenue sharing looks pretty close to where we budgeted at this point. The statutory revenue sharing is all there, and the constitutional was pretty close and pretty much in line with what we had budgeted for this fiscal year. So it's something we'll have to keep an eye on, but based on the most current estimates, that's what it looks like at this point.
Councilman?
I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. The state received the CARES Act funding that was dedicated for local municipalities. It then withheld any statutory revenue sharing that it was going to get from the state, and they essentially forwarded us what we were going to get from the federal government and the CARES Act funding anyway, and then took credit for giving us that money and saying, well, it was more than you were going to get from the revenue sharing, so be happy.
Well, no, I mean, they didn't have to give us any CARES Act money. It's not, the money wasn't dedicated to local governments. It went to the state, and it was up to the state to decide what to do with it. So they could have taken away our revenue sharing and said, you get nothing if they wanted to. So yeah, I mean, that was their way of, they really did good by us as far as I'm concerned in replacing that. I think we're
all right.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks. Other questions for our guests or for Mr. Sal at this point? Okay, see none. Mr. Sal, anything final comments? If not, Mr. Pastu?
I just, you know, I mentioned before that what was out on the agenda, there was a letter in there where it didn't come through very well. If anybody in the public is interested in seeing that, it's also available on our website currently. If they go to the finance department page, they can see it there. The other thing I'd say is because of all this federal money, the CARES Act, and we've been spending a lot of CDBG money this year, one thing that the auditors haven't had to do for probably at least 3 years in a row now is they haven't had to do a single audit, which is kind of like a federal compliance audit, the standards related to the various funding sources. But next year they will have to do this. So this meeting might go a little different next year compared to what it did this year.
That's correct.
It's nice to have all the federal funds, but there's lots of strings and requirements that come along with them.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Sal, and congratulations on again getting the recognition for yourself, the city, and all the hard work for this year again in our audit. And Rumsey and Yakov, thank you for being here as well as Bill. Good seeing you all.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Mr. Pastu, I know you have a few more items on the work session here.
Thank you, Your Honor. The next item I'd like to talk about is a review of proposed 2021 street projects. I'm going to pull up a spreadsheet that was contained in the packet for council. I know Mr. Lewis, although he's in Florida, is going to participate, but I just wanted to go over, I'm not sure why this is coming up the way it is. Hang on with a second here. Wanted to go up to the, there we go. You see that all right?
Yes.
Okay, and so what I want to do is, take advantage certainly of the millage, the 2 mills that was recently adopted by the voters here in the city of Monroe. It'll generate a little over $1.8 million. And what we were looking at was a very aggressive capital improvements program, but we kind of looked to see what projects we had that would be essentially shovel ready, if you will. And so Patrick kind of did some analysis of projects that we had out there that would be ready to go. And we're gonna, we'll walk through it a little bit. And Patrick, I'll let you walk through, talk a little bit about the spreadsheet, and then we get down to the lighter color there with the industrial park. I'll talk a little bit about that as well, Mr. Sell. So Patrick, I'll let you start this first part, just explaining what the different colors mean and how that puts together for our proposed plan for 21. So Patrick.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pastu. Honorable Mayor and Council, Patrick Lewis, Director of Engineering and Public Services. I did put this together, and this will match what I've submitted as a preliminary capital improvements program for our streets, which you will see at the beginning of the year. We color coded them, and initially this was kind of an internal document where we had looked to organize them into bid packages and things that could be bid either early in the season or that we were able to accelerate the design process more quickly. And so that's kind of what we're trying to do for 2021. We want to get as much on the street as quickly as we can, but doing so will tend to focus on the streets where we've already ordered up surveys, or in some cases, we've got projects that the surveys were already conducted 10, 12 years ago when we did I'll call it our barrage of water main projects. And those streets are now coming due. So the streets in the yellow, you'll notice the first 2 rows are no colors on that one. And the streets in the yellow, the first 2 with no colors on them are federal aid jobs. And those are, normally they would be considered maintenance projects, but they are federally eligible maintenance projects if they're on federal aid routes. So those kind of were, I guess I'll call them offline in what we were looking at, because we're just going to put together a description and we don't need plans on those. So those kind of have to go. The yellow ones are the street projects where we had ordered up surveys already a year ago in some cases in anticipation that we might have been able to fund those streets in 2020. I can tell you specifically West Noble, which is number 4, and Washington, which is number 5. We had actually, council had appropriated funding, but we needed to reappropriate that funding in order to complete this past year's package. So because our bids were not particularly good. So we're kind of re-upping the funding on those. So that's what 3 through 7 represent streets where the surveys are either already in or they're coming in. Riverview should be in this week coming up. The next grouping, which is the green, and that's rows 8 through 11. I've got 8 broken out into 8A and 8B. 8 through 11 are streets where they've been on our list as possible candidates. Some of them higher priority than others, but those were streets that we had done water main project work on between 2008 and 2011. So those were ones where we could very easily move those to design within the next couple of months to get those out on the street for bid packaging. Number 12 is a different color. That's a blue color. That's Riverview Avenue. That would be our 2022 federal aid project. We'd originally wanted to do the section of Riverview between Elm and Scottwood as a federal aid project until we started scoping it and realized that the lane widths were not going to meet federal standards without either widening the road or eliminating parking. So we actually, with the passage of the millage, we were able to move up the section of Riverview between Maywood and Oakwood, which is the asphalt section that runs in front of Arborwood schools. But we're just requesting design funding for 2021 because the 2021 federal aid project will be the 2 microsurface jobs. The next rows, which are, I guess, are kind of a purplish color, would be 13A, B, and C. And the reason we're calling them 13A, B, and C is we do think they should be bid as one package. Those are the industrial park roadways. And while we were hoping a year or 2 ago that we were going to receive some potential grant funding on those, it's tied to new jobs created in that area. And I don't think we're going to quite meet that threshold based on what the employers are telling us. Then the projects below those, 14 and 15, are ones that I listed on this list. 14 would be what I would say is the non-specific topographic surveys. And some of that will depend on which ones we think are most likely to go forward in 2022. But we also may have money left over to start the 23 and 24 projects. So I've requested $100,000 to sort of pick and choose as we go along this year, which streets we're going to be doing next. And then project number 15 on there is North Macomb Street, which I will note is not a resurfacing project. We've got that on the 5-year plan for 2026. But the reason we've got that on there is because as I started scoping the projects number 1 and 2, it looked like we may not use all of our federal money based on the pricing for microsurfacing. So we've added that as a third microsurfacing job so that we can not leave any federal money on the table. So what the intent would be was we would package 1, 2, and 15 together as a federal aid project so we could use all of our federal money on I would call it preventative maintenance. And then so the plan from there, if all of these projects were funded, is that we would package the industrial park roadways 13A, B, and C together as one contract, which we could have out on the street in January. And my staff's actually working on them now for design purposes. And that would be a very healthy package for a contractor early season. I'm very confident we would get good bids on that. The other streets, we haven't quite decided how we want to bid those, but I will note that projects 8A and 8B, as well as 9, are streets where they're currently asphalt, but we've looked at the potential possibility of converting those over to concrete streets since we need to do curb and gutter and the surface is in poor shape. We're actually finding no more than a 20 to 30% cost increase to do them in concrete, which has more than double the lifespan. So those are good candidates. We're looking to convert those to concrete pavements. 10 and 11 were not. Those are not cost effective to do that. And then 3 through 7 above are again the ones that are currently asphalt. We would likely bid 5, 6, and 7 together for sure because they're all in the immediate vicinity and they're downtown streets. We're looking at a hybrid with 3 and 4 where we might actually package Riverview and Noble together because they have water main work on them first. Every other street on this list does not require water main work first, which is another reason we pick some of these projects so we can just get them ready, get them out on the street and go. So, and lastly, I think I listed the sidewalk replacement program under the streets only because those are now eligible for the street millage costs. So if you choose to put the sidewalk program with the street millage, we can do that as well. But I've got it as infrastructure number 1 because I do have a separate category for the CIP for that. I think I'll leave it there for now. I've probably given you way more than you wanted, but that gives you a window into why we selected them, how we plan to bid them. And I can tell you, most of the things on this list, we could get out for bids before March or April without too much headache.
You know, the one thing I wanted to add to it is, again, going to the industrial park, looking at the financing associated with it. Mr. Sell's been in touch with our financial advisor with PFM about putting together a structure. In 2016, we did issued some bonds for Act 51 revenue bonds, and those are scheduled to mature, I believe, in 2023. And what I'm looking at having us consider is, and the annual debt service is in the range of $450,000 each year to, I think it gets up to $500,000 last year, but is to kind of overlay these so that as soon as the last payments are made on the 2016 bonds, that we would incorporate this in here. Again, part of it is it's all concrete work. You can see up above a lot of concrete work up there. Is that we think we would get a very, very aggressive package by putting these all together. The other part of it is the borrowing cost is pretty phenomenally low. It's even actually lower than what it was in 2016. And I was looking at the interest cost and it was under 2% then. And certainly considerably less than what we anticipate future inflation costs for these. So there is a lot of merit to try and get as much done as you can from the favorable interest costs, a large scope of concrete work, and again tailoring it so that it's on the back end of extending the 2016 bonds as well. So that was, what we're looking at doing. We still have a little bit more to do with that to secure the financing. Mr. Sell indicated today that they'll be running some schedules to see how that would look and obviously present those back. But we did want to get the engineering department kind of start working toward putting some bid specs out there so we can be ready to go in late January for these bids and hopefully have some work starting in April. The other part of it is, if I may, is there any questions with that before I go to the 2022?
Carol, see if there are any questions on 2021 items that were reviewed by Mr. Lewis and Mr. Pastu. Any questions from council?
I have one small one.
Yeah.
Yes.
What is microsurfacing? Is that the thickness?
Yeah, well, yes, yes, Councilwoman. The microsurfacing is, you've probably seen us do like a slurry seal before, where that's just basically the asphalt emulsion. It kind of coats the surface. Microsurfacing is a I'll say a beefed up version of that. And you can do it in 1 or 2 applications. I think actually, typically for roads like Elm and Dixie, they would recommend 2 applications of it. It's essentially sand and the asphalt emulsion that basically makes it. It keeps the surface from oxidizing. It's another tool in our arsenal that allows it keeps the surface from getting more brittle. So once the street gets to be between 5 and 10 years old, it's usually a good candidate for application of this. So when you're done, it'll probably have 1/4 or 3/8 of an inch more material on the road than it does now, but it will protect that and give you more life on the surface.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Other questions from council? Okay. Seeing none, Mr. Pastu.
Well, just to talk a little bit about projects in 2022. We've talked about the St. Mary's Garden storm sewer. As you can see there's at the top of that next table is we're looking at $1.5 to $2 million for the storm sewer work. And then immediately below that, you'll see the next 5 are a function of those streets being reconstructed in conjunction with that. We are going to consider at some point in time doing the potentially bonding for this. It is a fairly large project, but one necessary. And historically, they've had sewer backups in the area, and all of this needs to, I think, be corrected. But the significance of it is we may go for a longer term bond, given the fact that better than half of it's going to be installation of storm sewer lines whose life will far exceed whatever term of the bonds we would look at. Those are 50, 60, 70-year type of infrastructure. And so consequently, we'd be looking at that. And then obviously, Patrick's identified some other projects that would go in there. Depending on how much we would look at issuing bonds, we may still be able to add as much as another $1 million into the 2022 project list. So, looking at that just to give you a sense, but we would spend this next year working on the design work for the St. Mary's Garden storm sewer project. Patrick, do you want to add anything with that?
No, Mr. Pastu, I don't think so. I think you hit it on the head there, that this is the 2022 list should not be considered an absolutely final list, because we may find that by bidding so much work fairly early in 21, we may have money left over too. I'm confident with this large a package, we'll do pretty well. So I would anticipate some other projects, and we may want to look too to whether the asphalt or concrete's more advantageous. I will note that we have a lot more concrete contractors available than we have asphalt contractors. So we do probably want to bid and group those. And so we'll probably do some shuffling around, but no, I think you've encapsulated it. The streets in St. Mary's Gardens, we have been deliberately holding off on. And at that point, most of those will be more cost effective to reconstruct as concrete streets than to leave them asphalt as they are at present. So besides that, nothing else.
Very good.
If I may, it's just, I'm going to pull something back up from last year. We are, as I've mentioned, looking at, we're a little behind where we normally are with our capital improvements. But again, that's part of a function of us recognizing that the millage was being considered in early November. And now that we have a good direction to work with, we're trying to do a little catch up. This is something actually at this time last year when we usually present the capital improvements program budget. You know, a couple of notes that I had made in there is breaking down our road and street funding is our major streets classification the MDOT has for different roads. These are in good shape. As Patrick talked about, the major roads eligible for federal aid funding, those are in pretty good shape. The state trunk lines would be Telegraph in Monroe. I'm getting a little concerned with the state, and the Telegraph is starting to look a little worn, but ultimately that's going to be the state's responsibility, and our city bridges based on the millage that was levied for those. These are in good condition and are financially viable and sustainable going forward. The other part I put out last year was, okay, here's our challenges. Local residential streets, sidewalks, alleys, industrial park where Turnus's and St. Mary's Garden. The significance, if we carry forward like what's being proposed, is that we can certainly take 8 and 9 and within the next year move those into the classification where they're in good shape. But clearly you'll have the funding in place to start really making impactful improvements to not only the local residential streets, but also the sidewalks. And so, you know, that the millage levy that was approved by the voters will, I think, in many ways put us in a good position for to improve the quality of our streets throughout the city. So I just wanted to pull that back up. It was something that you know, was presented last December at this time as part of the capital improvements program, and I think great strides have been made to address where those challenges are. So with that, I don't have anything else to add with regarding the proposed projects. If there's any other questions, we'll certainly entertain them.
Okay, if there's any other questions, if not, we have a couple more items on the work session to review. Thank you, Mr. Lewis and Vince, and
Yep.
we'll. I know that we'll continue to monitor as these move forward, and as we always say, there's those that move up the list and those that surprise us and are always a consideration as they come forward. So thank you both. Vince?
Thank you.
Your next item.
Next item I had out there was the formation of a trail advisory committee. I think last work session, I talked about the fact that, you know, we do have good asset management plans and systems related to streets, and Patrick does a nice job with sidewalks as well, and certainly water and sewer. So we have a good idea with where the needs are. But what we don't have is a real plan for trail development, how we connect with those trails outside of the community, not only just immediately locally, but regionally, and include some design standards related to lighting, wayfinding signs, markings, benches, those type of thing, receptacles are all part of an element, I think. And again, eligible in the future for the millage that was recently approved. And so rather than kind of go blind, I thought it'd be better if we formed a kind of like a citizens advisory committee to kind of help with, you know, retaining a consultant to help put this together for us, but also to review the projects. And I think in terms of like a citizens planning commission, but dedicated to this, where, you know, you'll have a staff member dedicated to work with them, but allow them to do a lot of the work with our assistance.
So Vince, you are looking for any thoughts or inputs from council regarding setting up this advisory committee, is that correct?
Correct.
So I'll go to council, see if there's any comments or questions regarding this. I think we just briefly touched on it in a previous session as we looked at some of the other partnerships we're doing with trails, but looking at this internally, what we have and what might need to be done. Any thoughts from council? Andrew.
Did we
Oh,
have
we're going to recruit these people.
Oh, well, Michelle got her question in. So how to recruit? You know, that's a good question. Mr. Pastoon and I talked briefly. As we know, we have our Recreation Advisory Commission. It's kind of been, the council's talked about how we revisit what that, what recreation is and what an advisory commission, I should say, would be. And maybe, I think there's probably a couple individuals there that are still, I'll say, in contact and interested. I think that might be a start, but really looking broader of you know, just as we have talked about some broader perspectives, who that might be. It'll take some contacts and some hopefully interest to those. Once we kind of set up what it is we're looking for, then I think we might attract some people as well. Andrew?
Given the makeup of the of our trails in the connection points therein, they connect to the battlefield, they connect to the state park, they connect to a county-wide trail system. They connect to a business district. Did we have any idea of the sorts of people we wanted sitting on this board?
I'll look to Vince, see if he's got a template or something of what maybe you've seen elsewhere. I know I was just at one of our SEMCOG meetings, and they had done, St. Clair County had done a trail analysis, and I'm going to be following up just to see what theirs was about. Maybe that would be giving some indication. It may not match with what we're doing, but I think there's some ways to reach out and find out what that might be. But that's a good question. Vince, any thoughts?
To be honest with you, I think that's in part the importance of having a citizens group, because they ultimately will be the users. Whether, you know, I like to walk, but there's others, bicyclists, and that's where some of the design considerations, the widths, the markings, those type of things, I think are important. And but I don't have a predisposition as to you know, what group of citizens would be most appropriate for that.
I just know that on some of the other committees that we have, many of our citizen representatives are required to have a certain background or required to live in a certain place or be representative of a certain industry or interest, so that all those ideas, you have that diversity that's brought to the table. That you have a recreation background. Maybe there's something on blue water trails there. I know we've done studies on that in the past, so that all those interests are represented, and that you're not just saying, well, it's recreation only, even though it goes to business districts, historic districts, goes to the battlefield, goes to the state park, has multi-jurisdictional influence around the county and with our neighboring municipal partners as well. So not particularly a preference on that. I'm sure that whomever the mayor will find to a point there, or whoever's going to do that's going to do a good job. But I think that diversity of interest is really critical. And moreover, why trails are so important here in Monroe.
Right. I see Mr. Cochran.
Those connection points.
Right. And I think we have trails that are internal to our parks that are different styles, different types that get different use, whether it be walking or even off-road biking, stuff like that, and road biking. Mr. Cochran, I saw you raise your hand. You might have some follow-up.
Yeah, Mayor, if I may, I was talking with Vince the other day, and the county has set up a pedestrian and bicycle task force under their Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission. And they've done a really good job of having folks seated on their task force that represent both users that are walkers and bikers, as well as I know a representative from the local bicycle shop here in the city sits on that, as well as some of the neighboring jurisdictions that are trying to have the trails extended into their municipality as well. So one of the things that I've talked to Vince about might be beneficial is having someone from our committee serve as liaison to the county task force as well, because if our goal is to connect the city's trail network into the larger regional, either county or regional trail, like hopefully the Iron Bell or the Toledo trail network to the south in Ohio, it'd be a good liaison position as well to make sure that the spokes that we're connecting or building into the city connect users into other areas in the region as well.
Okay.
Just a thought.
Thank you, Mark. I think your guys' head's in the right spot on this one.
So if you're okay with this, what I might do is, is put together just a application, if you will, and solicit interest for people to, apply and be considered. and then obviously share that with mayor and the city council. But clearly, what is your interest, in serving? I'm not sure. I don't think we'll have any shortage of interest, to be honest with you. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's that'll be a good start point, and then we can make some contacts, and then as council, we'll be thinking of, I'm sure, individuals that know that readily use it, whether they're biking or walking, and so that personal approach as well, to say we have this advisory committee that's being formed, and why they would be an asset for us to look at this in a very, very broad sense for our entire system here in the city. Very good.
Okay. I'll come report back with more details then.
Okay, next item, Vince.
Next item I have on there is a discussion of Winchester Corridor Plan. It's an item that we've talked about in the past with City Council here within, probably the last 3 weeks. Discussions that we've had with representatives from MCOP, ALCC, and the Oaks of Righteousness, talking about interest in not only housing, but also commercial interest in that area. We did budget this. And so what I'm looking at is probably the one thing that I'll be challenged with is the scope. We do list it as Winchester Corridor Plan. I'm contemplating, we probably need to extend it a little bit further west to cover Kentucky and even where the Mako site is, and the fire station, and obviously the church area as well. And how far do we take it east? We may take it all the way back into the far corner up by Peters and what have you in there. And my sense of it is that's probably a broad area for the scope, but probably appropriate given what I think we would define as potentially being the Orchard East neighborhood area.
So Vince, you're bringing this forward for the discussion, and we've had this discussion has started in some of the plans and progress that have been made, and obviously the great opportunities that present themselves. So I'll just say, if council has any thoughts or questions on this, I might have some thoughts myself that I'll share, but I'll see if council has anything first.
If I may, Your Honor, I think this has been a long time coming. I think this has been the plan for some time now. I think we've made moves to make this happen in terms of the development that's happened over there, and the some of the property acquisitions that have allowed for development on that site. If such a vacancy exists, I wouldn't mind serving on the steering committee for this.
Very good. Kelly, I see you have your hand up and unmuted. Go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor, I agree with Andrew. It is a long time coming. I hadn't thought much about the scope of the project, but and I don't know yet what our plans for the corridor are, but if it's has to do with residential, instead of stopping at the Conant Avenue, we might want to take it all the, as far east into the Orchard, because you have a whole residential neighborhood back there that I like to remind us about, with probably a much higher home ownership rate and, east of Conant. If there was, when I was coming up, there was a little stores here and there, different businesses. Again, I don't know what the complete scope is. Is it more commercial or residential, or will it be a mixed use type situation? But I would definitely be interested in serving on any committee that we set up for the Winchester Corridor Plan as well.
Sure.
And I agree with Vince about going back as far as Kentucky, especially since we already kind of have plans for those areas. Historically, when I was coming up, they called the Orchard everything east of Conant. As I moved back into the city 20 years ago and got into some community development, we had to identify an area. We were working on a neighborhood stabilization grant, and Mishta called for us to identify a 16 or 20 block area. And that's how we just started referring to the Orchard East as everything from Kentucky back. I've heard some argument that some people think it could go further west, but I think the people would agree that it will be either Kentucky East or Conant East. So that was just a little background history. But yeah, I'd definitely be interested in serving on that committee when we form it. And it's exciting to hear about some of the ideas that the agencies have that will take some of the pressure off the city to develop and do what I have always said we need to do, is go into more private and other entity partnerships. So yeah, I think we're on the right track with this one and look forward to hearing more.
Thanks, Kelly. You know, I think when we write it as a Winchester corridor, I think that just kind of goes back to some of the discussions and recollections that people have about the kind of the business corridor, what a Winchester was. But I think it's much more than that. I agree with you, Kelly. I think that, you know, when you talk about a plan for a comprehensive plan of an area and including going to Kentucky Avenue, because when you talk about the entire corridor area in this larger plan, you know, there's access points. Of course, we have I-75 and the discussions we've had about that whole reconfiguration of having a safer and better route into our community, and then also into the Battlefield area, also into the downtown. So it's that crossroads that are right there. And then you go north, there's access from that point. And going west, we see that. I look at Kentucky, and that is our access as we head south. And as part of that geographic area, whether it be the Mako site, you know, of course, the Oaks of Righteousness, the fire stations there, and all the way down to La Pleasance eventually, because those different people will find different ways of getting to the neighborhood, and that might be one of the ways is through La Pleasance. So I think that whole plan really has to be in not just the business and access to core services that people are looking for, but other reasons as well. So I think that the area is going to be broad. I think there's opportunities for this committee, and I think we'll get a great number of volunteers that'll want to serve and provide input as we start to make the environment available for that development. So I'll stop there. I don't know if Councilwoman Germain, if you had any other comments.
I look at this as an entire region like you do. Like, I know that MCOP was looking at housing in some of the areas down there, which I think is fantastic. And the entire region, once you start rebuilding, some of that is going to spurt more growth. I agree with you all the way down to La Pleasance and into the township area. So I'm excited about it. And of course, I would volunteer to do anything we need on the committees.
Sure.
So yeah, it's a great idea. And it's an entire region. It's not just the Orchard, that end. We got to look at the whole region neighborhood there.
Yeah, I think we have a core of the that Winchester corridor, the Kentucky and First Street, and then as we get into whether it be residential south, east, or in that make the corridor that brings people into the neighborhood, into the corridor that's developed, and so we have to have the access points all equal and same, and have it so it is easy access and accommodating. But I think how we focus and deliver in that core area of the water plan, I think is critically important to make sure we make those core services that are currently missing, that we provide those opportunities for whether it be entrepreneurs development or to make that happen. I know, Kelly, you just jumped out for a second. That's okay. You're back just in time. We're just kind of reviewing Councilwoman Germain, her thoughts of support as well.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Green.
I think what we probably are looking at from a planning perspective is really a sub-area plan as opposed to a corridor development. Mr. Pastu and I had a chance to meet with or talk with Pastor Boone via Zoom this past week. And, I know we've had conversations with the Oaks regarding possibly rezoning their complex and properties. They now have 8 properties that span between their original complex with the church over to 3rd Street and Winchester. And so they're expanding. So one of the things that we would also probably want to look at in this sub-area plan as we begin doing that is organizations like the Oaks, like MCOP, also how this all works into the battlefield and connects into that as well. But I think looking at those, we would also want to look at zoning, because that's going to play a key component in these organizations having the ability, the flexibility, the latitude to really kind of carry out the missions that they have for the variety of things that they do. So again, I think this sounds like a great start for this. And I think this is, again, we proposed a sub-area plan a number of years ago. Unfortunately, did not have money at that point in time to do it, but I think certainly now the time has come. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. I think sub-area plan, we've had some, I'll just say success, or got some footholds in doing those recently. And I think it's a perspective that would fit here as well. Kelly, go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. When Jeff talks about a sub-area plan, I know when we talked about zoning before, we talked about the PUD. Is that a similar? I know we talked about that when we were working on the fire station. Is that the same thing, Jeff?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I think that we would want to look at that, because I know, again, that's a discussion that we have had with Pastor Boone about PUD. In the past, even before the Oaks of Righteousness came in, we've had organizations come in, similar types of organizations that want to do a variety of things on a particular site. Unfortunately, sometimes when you're doing a variety of different things, they don't always fit under a particular zoning district, and that's where PUD would be helpful. Now, the entire area may not be PUD, but it may be, we may define an area that we do want to have as PUD that would allow, again, a variety of things going on. Again, the types of things that the Oaks does, maybe the types of things that MCOP is involved with as well. So, but I think that would be part of the sub-area plan, would be investigating where appropriate zonings would be.
Kelly, go ahead.
Your Honor, I'm sorry I dropped off, so I missed some of Michelle's statement, but I heard her mentioning headed out to La Pleasance, and we talked about heading east and west. I just wanted to, I guess a concern for me would be the focus being too broad and not concentrated in a particular area. So I just wanted to state that as a concern, knowing that all of those are important.
If I may just, and it's if I may, Your Honor.
Yes, Vince.
I'm sorry. It is a legitimate concern, but I do think that, when we did the Lazy Boy site, certainly there was some environmental issues. I'm not sure we'll overly be involved with that. There was some traffic analysis. I'm not sure that'll be part of the scope, but housing is going to be a critical piece. And so I do think that, related to that, you may have some market analysis that will incorporate, that will include not only the commercial, because I think there's an intuitive sense that there are some service and commercial uses that will actually work and function. And it would be good to have that validated through a market analysis, but also what's the housing potential and where. And so those are, I think you're going to have a concentration of certain things along Winchester and Kentucky, but also there's going to be a broader sense of housing that'll look at that as well. So I do think that, and not only with that, but there'll be some potential recommendations about strategies for dealing with different, housing conditions, whether it's expanding, blight maintenance, those type of things. So it'll be fairly broad, but But I also think that those will be also concentrated in different areas too.
I see we're at about 7:20, and I know that Vince, I'll ask, and are you getting the direction or thoughts that you're looking
Yeah.
for before we?
Yeah, fine. I'm glad to encourage that there's support from council to move forward with it. And, what we'll do is probably put together, as we have in the past, just a quick resolution of participants. And then internally, we can work on kind of polishing up some other RFPs that we've had with consultant services and tailor it, if you will, for this project. So.
Very good. We'll look forward to seeing what present for the council for consideration at a future date. I know that'll be fairly soon.
Yep.
Very good. All right.
The only other
Vince?
thing I had was, if I may, Your Honor, is, review of items on the regular meeting agenda. The one item I am going to ask is that on the consent agenda, we have an item regarding the sale of property from with the Port of Monroe. If we could move that up to council action. That item is number 2963. We would just ask that it would be moved to council action behind our last item, which is the 2970.
So as we get into the meeting, opportunity to amend the agenda to ask to have that item, a council member to make a motion to move that from consent agenda to the council action.
Yep.
All right. Anything else, Vince?
Nope, that's it for tonight or for this work session.
All right. And we have a couple minutes. If there's any council members, any items on the agenda they wanted to have at least a startup conversation with the administration or coming into the meeting. Okay. I don't see any. So I think very well. Thank you for all your input on the work session topics. I look forward to these projects moving forward, just as we've moved others forward. So thank you all. I think at this time we'll close the work session, and we have about 8 minutes. We'll Zoom. I guess we'll be on hold here. We don't have to leave anywhere, just on hold. And are mindful that if you have your audio on, that you might want to mute. That's all. So we'll convene back here in a few minutes. Thank you. Councilman, good day. John?
Yeah, how you doing, Mayor?
Wonderful. I know that you had an appointment there. That you'll have an opportunity to review the work session items. I'm sure that you can certainly catch that, some of the good discussions on the trip.
I'll get with Mr. Pastu.
Yeah. And there's also the Winchester corridor. Two good discussions in the work session. I know that I have about 7:31, but I think we're still waiting for somebody here. There's Andrew, John, Michelle, Kelly, myself. Yeah, okay. Just setting something up here. Okay. I'll look to Clerk Treasurer Roy if we're ready.
Ready, sir. 7:30.
Okay, it is 7:30. At this time, we'll call the City Council meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder,
I am present in the city of Monroe.
Whitman,
Excused.
Ikoangeli,
President, City of Monroe.
Vining,
You're muted, Kelly.
Yeah, she's looking for the button. Oh, she popped off.
Oh, shoot.
We'll continue through the roll, but we'll take a moment. I know that she's had a couple of connection opportunity or problems, I should say, during the work session. So it will continue. We'll wait till she comes back.
Germaini,
Present, City of Monroe.
Lamore,
Excused.
Mayor Clark.
Present, City of Monroe, Michigan, and I see Councilwoman Viney's back, so we'll let her say she's here and where she is.
And I'm here in the city of Monroe. I apologize. I'm having internet issues this evening.
No problem, Councilwoman. We'll just, as I said, we'll go through this. We'll make sure if it's something of a long discussion, I know you're going to get back on quickly, so we'll just keep monitoring that through the night. Thank you. Clerk, next item.
The next item is the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. And as we gather and bow our heads this evening, I wanted just to take a moment and remember the veterans from Pearl Harbor Day, which we celebrate today, December 7th, or honor. Grant us the strength to manage challenges ahead and the wisdom to identify opportunities as we strive to serve our community. As we make decisions, grant us the gift of an open mind, the willingness to learn, and the humility to accept the ideas of others.
Thank you. As we begin our meeting, please join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty
and justice for all.
Thank you. Our next item, Clerk.
The next item would be any amendments to the agenda.
And I believe there's an item, Councilman Felder.
Yes, Your Honor. I move that item number 2963 be moved from the consent agenda to the council action.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Feller, supported by Councilwoman Germaini, that item 2963 be moved from the consent agenda to the council action portion of the agenda. Any other items or amendments? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll for the motion.
Councilperson Felder,
Yes.
Echoangeli,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Germaini,
yes,
Mayor Clark.
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item are any citizen comments not related to an agenda item, and I do not see any hands raised at this moment.
I see we do have some attendees. So at this point, I'll review the rules of the chamber. As those get ready, I see there's one hand raised already. If you wish to speak during the citizen comment time, please be mindful of the time of 3 minutes, and also ask that you state your jurisdiction of residence. And again, at the end of the meeting, there'll be another opportunity. So Clerk Treasurer, if you want to move the one forward and see if there's, we'll see if there's any after that.
All right, I did move Kojo forward.
Okay, Dr. Kojo Corte, you have the floor. If you would make sure you're muted, and your
Yes.
comments, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I appreciate it very much. I just wanted to come this evening to just say a big thank you to the city council and the mayor, city manager, and the entire city of Monroe for voting in the affirmative on our millage renewal. We won the city of Monroe by 67%, and we really appreciate the city for supporting us through these times. And so really that's all I want to say. Just one other thing is you may have heard about the futures for frontliners, free community college for frontliners. And the deadline is the 31st of December. So please, please get the word out there. Free community college for frontliners. We're recruiting heavily for that. And that's being paid for with state and federal funds. So just those two items is all I wanted to address this evening. Once again, thank you, Monroe, for supporting our community college.
Thank you, Kojo, and thank you for joining with us this evening with your comments.
All right.
Clerk, I don't see any other hands. Do you have any other in waiting that wish to speak at this time?
I do not.
I do not either. So next item, please.
The next item is under communication, item 2959, River Raisin Heritage Corridor Advisory Commission Annual Report.
Thank you. Mr. Pastou, or are you going to have Mr. Cochran review this one?
Well, Your Honor, we just have it as a communication item, obviously, on behalf of the Corridor Advisory Commission. Mark had worked in drafting this, and so if you have any questions for Mr. Cochran, feel free to ask at this time.
Very well. As we know, the council set forward this commission to be the front work for us on the development of the Heritage Corridor Plan, and some great progress here this first year, and enjoyable in those meetings, but also the progress forward. I'll see if there's any council questions or comments. Council Michelangeli.
Thanks, Your Honor. I just wanted to let Mark know, and I know, Mayor, you're on the committee. I thought that the report provided a lot of information, and I was really happy in the report to see all the different stakeholders that represent a variety of agencies and interests in the Native Americans as well as part of the group. So I thought the annual report was well done, and I appreciated the information.
Thank you. I thought it was very clear and concise as well. It right to the objectives that it achieved. And I know that some of the even committees that they're getting other volunteers to join on some committee work is really good progress. Other questions or comments? Oh, John, go ahead.
Yeah, Your Honor, if I may, I'd move to accept and place on file the annual report of the River Raisin Heritage Corridor Advisory Commission.
second,
Motion by Councilman Michelangeli, supported by Councilwoman Germaini, to accept the communication as stated. There's no further comments. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder,
Yes.
Michelangeli,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Germaini,
yes,
Mayor Clark.
Yes. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is 2884, public hearing to receive and review comments on proposed ordinance 20-003, an ordinance to amend chapter 720 zoning ordinance of the city of Monroe.
Thank
And there
you.
are no comments on file in the clerk's office.
Thank you. At this time, I'll open up the public hearing regarding item 2884, the public hearing proposed ordinance, zoning ordinance 20-003. Any public comment this evening? Any comments from those participants, attendees with us today regarding this proposed ordinance? Any public comment? I see none. Clerk, treasurer, I see no hands. Do you?
I see no hands.
Very well. At this time, close the public hearing. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is under council action. It's item 2804, proposed zoning ordinance 20-003, up for its final reading.
Council Michelangelo.
Your Honor, it's with the greatest pleasure that I do this. To move to adopt ordinance 20-003, the ordinance to amend chapter 720, the zoning ordinance of the code of the city of Monroe, for its final reading.
Support.
Support.
There's a motion by Councilman Michelangelo and supported by Councilman Felder, and I think and all of us that on item 2804. I will give an opportunity to see if there's any final comments on this. I know it's been a long time coming, a lot of discussion, a lot of really changes as we went along. And I think there's a lot of things that the public should really be aware of as we start to roll this out, just as I know that as we move forward, there will be change for some, and we'll be receptive to those conversations with the public and bring them along with the full structure of what's been changed here. So we're all glad to see it's here. I know we are. And there is a motion and second. I'll just see if this council has any other comments. Seeing none, clerk, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Green, go ahead, please.
If I might, I want to thank all of you for your patience, your support through this. I think you're certainly aware of the circuitous and even, we might say, torturous route to get the zoning code here tonight. The Community Development Department staff took really a very rough draft from our consultants and rebuilt it from the ground up. We began as this latest process for adoption. We found that there were Scrivener's errors in the maps that illustrated the various zoning districts. We found that tattoo shops had not been addressed by our consultants. We went back, we just stopped it at that point in consultation with Mr. Pastu and Mr. Buds. So I think all of you are familiar with the changes that came about, but I do want to tell you, I think the staff put a lot of time in on this, and I appreciate all their help and our consultant, Ben Tellerico. And again, all of the patience from everyone here. There were times when we knew it was going to happen. We just wondered when. So thank you very much on behalf of the Community Development Department and the staff.
And I know we have all the council thanks to give as well to the hard work that was done in this. Councilman Michelangelo.
Yeah, just to let Jeff know, when we started this process, I had hair.
So did I.
I think of all the efforts on this, the committee members, the council discussion, it came back a couple times. It just keeps getting adjusted, and we do have a good product. I know the Planning Commission and others, and just getting their support and review of it as well. So it's just not, somebody drawing up a new zoning. There was a great deal of work over the years, and my thanks to everybody involved. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder,
Yes.
Michelangelo,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Germaini,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes.
Ordinance 20-003, Chapter 720 zoning, an ordinance to amend Chapter 720 zoning ordinance of the City of Monroe of the Code of the City of Monroe. The City of Monroe ordains.
Shall this ordinance pass?
Councilperson Felder,
Yes.
Michelangelo,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Germaini,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next item, please.
The next item is item 2862, sign ordinance 20-006, an ordinance to establish a new chapter signage of the Code of the City of Monroe, up for its final reading.
Your Honor, I'll move to adopt ordinance 20-006, an ordinance to establish a new chapter signage in the Code of the City of Monroe.
Support.
The motion by Councilman Nicolai, supported by Councilwoman Vining on item 2862, the sign ordinance 20-006. Any comments from council? I'll make a brief comment because I know that this really ties to how we move forward with the zoning ordinance, and just more for public that may not have awareness. Of course, the sign ordinance being moved out, and while it is very similar, or it is what we currently have, we're just adopting it. But there's a lot of work to be done here, as we all know, and there's so much that we look at and read through in bringing things up in today's, I'll just say, market and times. And I look forward to that work and look forward for the recommendations coming out of planning. And as we start to address some of those particular items that we've talked about in the past, the signing ordinance is going to be a challenge, not to get the work done, but just to make sure that we get through all the details of it, much of what we just went through with the zoning. It will not take that long, but it will take time, and hopefully we'll, through the planning and administration, we'll be able to bring at least things forward as we can continue to progress as we the various areas within that. So a lot to be done, but I'm glad we're here at this point for the action for the final reading. Any other comments? If not, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder,
Yes.
Michael
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Jermaine,
yes,
Mayor Clark.
Yes.
Ordinance 20-006, signage, an ordinance to establish a new chapter signage to the Code of the City of Monroe, the City of Monroe ordains.
Shall this ordinance pass? Clerk?
Councilperson Felder,
Yes.
Michael
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Jermaine,
yes,
Mayor Clark.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next item, please.
The next item is item 2970, amendment to OPR Resolution 101 West First Street.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, would you like a brief introduction on this?
Yes, I think we've it would be appropriate because there's been here before, and where there's been some adjustments. I think it would be good for not only council, but for those that are watching and may see in the future. Please do.
Okay. This is in regards to 101 West First Street, which was before actually the council about this time in 2019. And at that time, a resolution was presented and adopted by City Council on November 4th, actually, of 2019. That resolution, along with the application package for an obsolete property exemption certificate, was submitted to the State Department of Treasury. We did that in accordance with the time frame, which was October of this year. In November, the Community Development Department received a response from the State Tax Commission, which had determined that the resolution was deficient in the fact that it did not state whether the exemption certificate could be extended or not. And I know we had some discussion and provided some time frame. We, being City Council, provided a time frame for potentially extending the number of years for the exemption certificate. That was not executed by the applicant at that time. And so what we have done is basically rework the ordinance or the resolution to indicate that there are no exemptions beyond what was the original 6 years granted. And so with the approval for that this evening, we would then begin in the packet together along with some additional information which was required from the applicant, and we'll be getting that out shortly.
Thank you. Any questions from council for Mr. Green? I think we recall how we got here and bringing this back for the purpose stated.
Your Honor, I'll be happy to make a motion to adopt a revised resolution for the obsolete property rehabilitation exemption certificate for 14 East First Street, First LLC.
Yeah, that's right.
Second.
second,
Okay, there's a motion by Councilman Michaelangi, supported by Councilman Felder on item 2970, to amend the OPR resolution on 101 West First Street. Or I should say amendment, sorry. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder,
Yes.
Michaelangi,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Jermaine,
yes,
Mayor Clark.
Yes. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is item 2963, which was moved to the agenda under council action, authorization of Port of Monroe land sale to DRM Diversified Residual Management LLC.
Okay, I'll see if Mr. Pastu, I don't, having moved this, is there any background or information you'd like to provide or move forward?
But if I could just have Mr. Buds provide a little background, and certainly Mr. Cochran can interject as well.
Very good. Mr. Buds.
Your Honor and Council, as a bit of background, this is a transaction that the Port of Monroe has been in discussions with DRM over some period of time, and it's taken a number of different avenues. I guess I'll remind Council that I have the pleasure of serving as both the Port's legal counsel and the city, so I'll acknowledge that as I give this discussion. I don't think that there's any issue as far as that's concerned here, but want to remind all the council members of that as we talk forward. The overall transaction, I think, is well described and has a number of pieces. Basically, in short, it's the sale of the former port office building to DRM for essentially around the appraised value. The idea there being that DRM has leased that structure for a period of time, and they wish to make several improvements to it, but aren't willing to do that just on a leasehold basis. And so there was discussion about the sale of that property. And I think that piece sort of stands, at least in part, on its own as part of that transaction. Then there's an option for DRM to purchase an additional approximately 5.35 acres across the street on a proposed triangular parcel that is near the, essentially at the corner of Borchert Park Drive and Front Street. The idea there is that DRM would like to move a significant portion of its facilities and operations inside the port complex from other parts of the county, and would like to develop a maintenance and storage facility for their vehicles and equipment there so that they can provide that maintenance and handle their business right within the port and the city. They're not in a position to proceed with that purchase as we sit here this evening, but they would like the option to purchase that. And I will say it's for $1,000, which I will acknowledge is an under fair market value view, but it was going to be combined with the purchase of the office building and was going to come with the requirement that they develop that parcel, create that facility, and move 80% of their employees, operations, and equipment to that facility. And so it comes with continued development at the port and continued partnership. And so that is set up that they would have an option for 2 years following the closing on the purchase of the office building to come forth with a site plan for the development of that facility that would be acceptable to the city and the port. And once that's approved by all parties involved, then the option would be triggered where they could purchase that parcel for the $1,000 and begin that development. They would need to construct that facility within 1 year from the time of that moving forward. So those are the items that are built in. I will say the matter got brought forward based on some discussion and dialogue that was had with council members, and Councilman Michaelangi had raised two issues that I think are worth discussion here. One is a discussion of any further incentives that DRM might seek for that structure and whether the city would be amenable to those. And I believe, I don't want to speak for him, but based on our conversation with Councilman Michaelangi, I think it's his belief that the agreement should either reflect, or council's approval of this agreement that the port wishes to enter into would reflect that there be no further city tax incentives or abatements granted as part of that development. I was able to discuss that with the port director, Paul Lamar, and I don't believe there was any anticipation of any incentives, and I don't think that's a problem, and it's certainly within the purview of city council to do that. So that would be one modification that we would recommend as far as the resolution and the motion goes. The other concerns whether any portion of that property could potentially be used for the redesign of the interchange of I-75. In discussion with Mr. Cochran, it's my understanding that as things stand right now, that's not anticipated, and that those boundaries were drawn in a way that would not interfere with any redesign, though we all know, I'll say that isn't a done deal until it's a done deal. So there's certainly the option, and the port also has the right to buy back if DRM ever transferred to another party. But in discussions with Councilman Angeli, we also talked about putting a condition on this agreement that in the event the property was necessary for the redesign of the interchange and DRM had not constructed any buildings at that point in time, any property that was needed for that redesign could be purchased back by the port for a pro rata amount based on the acreage that would be repurchased back or removed from the option in the event that it was needed for the interchange project. I don't believe that there will be any issues with that from DRM's perspective based on my conversation with Director Lamar, but obviously we'll have to take that back and make sure DRM's comfortable with that. I think given that it's, if no buildings are constructed, that, I don't anticipate that being a problem based on the way that we described the option terms. And I'm happy to stop talking for Councilman Angeli, see if he has anything he wants to say further. But those were, I think, essentially the dialogue and the suggestions that we had based on that dialogue.
Councilman, anything further?
No, Your Honor. Matt summarized the discussions very well.
Okay, I'll see if there's any, Councilwoman Vining?
I was just curious, would the port still have their offices in that building?
The port offices, if I may, Your Honor, the port offices have not been located there since approximately 2015. So around that time period, the port reacquired the building that many would know as the Monroe Environmental location that's out on the dock, the larger blue building. Yeah. And since that time, the port offices have been out there at the larger blue building. And for the most part, DRM's been occupying the old office as its office here in Monroe. So it's not a change to possession really at this point.
Thanks.
Yeah. Other questions or comments? Okay, so we have item number 2963. If there's no further discussion items, looking for a motion.
Your Honor, I'll make the motion that we adopt the resolution authorizing the Port of Monroe to sell 2929 East Front Street to DRM with an option to purchase the vacant 5.35 acres with the two amendments to the agreement incorporated.
Support.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion by Councilman Angeli, supported by Councilman Felder on item 2963, the Port of Monroe land sale and agreement with DRM as stated and with the stipulations. Clerk, please call the roll.
Sorry. Councilperson Felder,
Yes.
Angeli,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Germaini,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is the consent agenda, and for approval of payments, the amount should read $1,800,810.61.
Very well. Are there any items on the consent agenda that council wishes to have pulled for further discussion? Any items on the consent agenda from council? Any none items on the consent agenda. Those present with us this evening wish to have pulled for further discussion would require to see a hand raised.
I see no hands raised, Your Honor.
Okay, that motion be in order.
Your Honor,
Councilman Felder.
I would motion that all items on the consent agenda be accepted, placed on file, recommendations carried out, and resolutions adopted.
I'll second that.
Okay, I got two. There's a motion by Councilman Felder, supported by Councilwoman Vining, that all items on the consent agenda be accepted, placed on file, resolutions adopted, and actions carried out. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder,
Yes.
Angeli,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Jermaine,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes.
I have no further items, Your Honor.
For council comments then is next. It is December. Councilman Felder.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll try and keep it brief. First of all, would like to thank Mr. Green and the whole community development team for putting in all the work on our new zoning ordinance. I certainly hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving, and I know the holidays are coming up. And in light of the spike in recent COVID cases, I hope that we all work together to enjoy Christmas and the New Year very safely. I'm certainly happy that during the work session, we were having the discussion on redevelopment and the formation of a plan regarding the Winchester corridor in the Orchard neighborhood. I think that that's really needed in terms of identifying the core services that are required, in terms of food deserts, in terms of affordable housing, in terms of the availability of transportation and such. So I look forward to seeing what the committee comes up with. It'll be good to see. And I know that is also as part of our work session, we had a discussion regarding the audit of our finances. We seem to be in good position, but since I got here on council, we've been discussing the impact of public safety on the budget and our need to adjust that accordingly. I know that the council and administration is working on that behind the scenes. I look forward to resolving that process here in the coming months. And I also hope that we are able to make that open and available to the public on the decision that is going to be made by council, or decisions rather, because I think it's going to be multifaceted at our earliest opportunity and convenience. So certainly, I mean, we're now going into my 4th year here, and this issue's existed since before I got here. So it'll be good and important to finish that up, especially considering the revenue situation of the years going forward. Maybe not next year or the year after, but certainly for the next 5 to 10 years to come. It's critical work that we're doing here, and I think that it's time. So I'm looking forward to both of those things. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thanks, Councilman. Councilman Michelangeli.
Thanks, Your Honor. I was not in attendance during the workshop because I had to zoom into West Branch for a meeting for business. Did the group talk about the Trail Advisory Group?
Yes, we did. And there was support from the council, great support, and looking how that forms and how we get the involvement of residents. And we think there'll be a long list of opportunities for those that participate with that. And recognizing that recreation today is much different than it was in the past, and people looking out to enjoy and walk. So yes, we did get to that. And I'm sure Mr. Pastu can provide some more with you if you will. I'll
catch up with the manager. Other question I had is, or comment was that DNR released last week their grants for the trust fund. Okay, and I know that we haven't applied for a few years for trust fund money. Are we at a point where we can start the master planning in detail for Carnes Park, so we can be in a position next October or November to put in a trust fund application so we don't miss another round?
That's a great question. In fact, earlier today, Mr. Pastu and I had that very conversation about Carnes, and even looking forward with items such as the mill race, with the opportunities that presents it for recreational too. But Mr. Pastu, your comments.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think we internally we've talked about at the staff level is engaging with Russell Design, who was involved with Labor Park. Mr. Lewis had a good working relationship with Russell Design, their engineers, as did I think all our city officials involved with that. And so part of what we're looking at is 2021 to engage with Russell Design, starting the scope and do the design work, so that in 2022 we might be able to have some construction. We do got a good set of park plans associated with it. I do think the scope, from my own standpoint, may be a little ambitious and needing some review, but I do think we would like to work toward getting design in 2021. The only problem with that, though, is the timing associated with the grant. if we apply this year, and I think we do have some decent cost estimates. I'm not sure we would necessarily, I'll look into whether it's feasible to go forward with this. I think we do have some cost estimates from the park plans, and certainly would like to consider rather than waiting into 2023 to do that project.
I would agree. You know, the maximum right now is 300,000, and I know that master plan, the cost estimate was in the millions. So we've got enough to, I think, put in an application for this round, which is first of April. They're due.
Yeah.
So okay, and then the last thing that I wanted to, I wanted to thank Ed. I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't at the workshop. I did review the audit. I did review the auditor's letter. Again, we had a really good audit, good fund balance. I wanted to thank Ed and his staff for facilitating that with Plant Moran. And I just wanted to comment that it's nice to see the conversion of the downtown lights almost completed. It does make a big difference on how the downtown is lit in the evening. And I want to thank the DDA and the Department of Public Services for making the transformation happen. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Viney.
Thank you, Your Honor. I wanted to thank the administration for all their hard work as well, finance and zoning, community development, all the work they've done. It's really appreciated. And I agree with Andrew on the public safety issue. I'm really hoping that we can resolve this. I've been on the council going on 8 years, and we've been talking about it for 8 years. So I know we've done a lot of work to move this forward, and I hope that we'll be able to come to some decisions, final decisions, and share those with the public sooner than later. It's really exciting talking about the next park project, that to be able to see our entire master plan come to fruition will just be wonderful for the city. I am assuming that we won't see a completion of Labor Park until the spring. So I don't know if Patrick or anyone could tell me if I'm making the correct assumptions or not. Also, if Patrick is still on the line and he's not aware, there is one light down in the park over by the playground section of the park. Because of all the other beautiful lights, it makes it really noticeable that one is not working. Mark, I look forward to the tour. I hadn't had the pleasure of seeing the Welcome Center yet, so I'm really excited for the tours on the 17th. And excuse me, talking about the upcoming Winchester corridor, that's very exciting. And I just wanted to restate, I'd like to sit on that committee, and the importance of the city going into more partnerships in these type of ventures, especially with the housing. And then Vince mentioned the market analysis, and I was just curious if the housing analysis that we did a couple years back, I know it was for the downtown area, if that could provide us with most of the information that we need without doing an entirely new study.
Well, it's changed a lot since then. I think you do need to update it and maybe target it a little bit more for the neighborhood.
Yes. So in that study, you know, the need for housing and different types of housing was identified. And I think if we continue to work with the private sector, the church sector, you know, we can get this done without very much cost to the city. So, yeah, I'm excited. I think we're doing big things as a council and administration. I've seen so much growth in the years I've been on the council, and I really appreciate everyone's hard work. So, just looking forward to the near future.
Thanks, Councilwoman. I know that Mr. Lewis is not with us. He was earlier. I saw Mr. Pastu taking notes, and I'm sure he'll share them along.
Pass
I'll
it on.
send him an email. Yeah, thank you.
He'll take care of it, and I'm sure you'll get a response back from the manager then. Thank you. Councilwoman Germaini.
Thank you, Your Honor. I too am excited about the corridor. Positive change. I'm so happy that we're moving in a positive direction in an area that truthfully needs a lot of positivity. So I'm anxious to get that started and get that rolling. Also, I want to thank Ed Sell for his meticulous accounting. Without him, our audits would not be as good as they are. So thank you for all your hard work and all of his staff. And I wanted to give a shout out for Paula. Paula's house is having a dine to donate tomorrow at Joy's. 20% of the dinners go to Paula's house. And with fundraising being tough this year, anybody that can help Paula's house out. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thanks, Councilwoman. I just have a couple of comments myself. I'm going to start cuts along lines along with most everybody else's comments. First and foremost, work session topics were great. I appreciate the council's input, having good dialogue. Looking forward to those two projects moving forward and getting residents involved, getting committees set up and participation from the council. You can see that there's many that want to participate, which is great. And I think from the trail plans through the corridor plan and improving our communities as a whole and making those access to core services that were mentioned. Other comment was made about the lighting downtown. Yeah, it's good to see that. I think there's only a couple left to go, but what a transformation that is. But also with the holiday season, the downtown lighting, I just want to give obviously thanks to the city and the council support, but the partnerships, as was mentioned earlier, the DDA, Downtown Development Authority, the DMBN, the Downtown Monroe Business Network, and some of the facade displays they're doing at different locations. The new lights that are there's more that are still coming. So it's kind of like coming along in different phases as some of the shipments were a little bit delayed. But I hope that people have the opportunity to come downtown and safely drive through or stay within your families and look at the displays and the lighting. And while this challenging times with COVID, we still, as Councilman Feller said, need to have our holidays, but we need to do that safely. Concern for ourselves, our families, our other residents, and please be safe. And however we come downtown to look at that. Regarding the lighting, I want to give a thank you because a grant was made available from the DTE Foundation to support the lighting on here right in the square by the tree. So hopefully you'll have a chance to recognize that as well. But those grants were also administered and brought through the United Way of Monroe and Lenawee County. So I want to thank Connie and her staff for bringing that forward. But again, thanks to the DT Foundation for that. I guess Mr. Sell's got his couple kudos here. I want to make it as well because in the audit, as Councilman Eichlein just say, what a great audit to read and see how well we're doing. And it's not just the financials, but the details and how well everything is accounted for, and the recognition he's getting recognized yet again another year in a row of meeting the standards that is at the highest level. And my last comment is, as we continue to work our way through this season and the challenges and the exposures and COVID, please do still shop downtown. It can be done safely. You can call. All of our downtown businesses have opportunities to do things online, simple for pickup. Our restaurants are having carry out, and take the opportunity to have a lunch, have a dinner, pick up, come down, drive through downtown, see the lights, pick up your meal, maybe pick up that small gift. But there's ways to do it safely. And please come down and make sure we don't forget about our downtown businesses and shopping locally. So that's my comments for this evening. Let's see. Clerk Treasurer Lavoie.
I have no comments, Your Honor, this evening.
Comments.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Nope. Mr. Pastu. You're muted, sir.
My apologies. I don't have anything to add, Your Honor. Thank you.
That will be the word of the year. You're muted. So I think that everybody has had it and everybody's said it. So we all should smile when we hear and say that. So
I can assure you, Mr. Lewis will never have that expressed to him.
Councilman Biden, did you have a follow-up or probably your hand from before? If you have a follow-up?
Yes, Your Honor, I
Yes.
forgot. I just wanted to thank Blake. His last name escapes me now, from the Monroe Evening News. He did a beautiful series on the Orchard East. So if anybody didn't get a chance to read it, it was in last week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And yeah, I think Blake did a good job on the series. So it's a good read if anyone wants to check it out.
Thanks, Councilman. That was a great a series of articles, and I think it covered much of history, but also present and opportunities that not only the council envisions, but I think the residents and the community sees the promise in which it can be. So I thank you for bringing that up. That can be found through the Monroe News. With that, Clerk, I think next is citizen comments. I see we do have some attendees this evening, so we'll make this opportunity at this time. If there's any comments from those present here this evening, mindful again of the rules of the chambers of 3 minutes. And if you do speak, your location, jurisdiction of residence. If there's any comments from those present here this evening, I currently do not see any hands. Clerk Treasurer.
I'm monitoring it. I do not see any hands and I did not receive any emails.
Very well. Very well. I see no comments. Motion be in order.
Your Honor, I motion to adjourn.
Support.
Motion by Councilman Felder, supported by Councilman Michelangeli to adjourn. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder,
Yes.
Michelangeli,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Germaini,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes. Thank you all for your input this evening, and please stay safe, healthy, and look forward to seeing everybody here in a couple weeks as we Zoom together again.
Okay. Have a good evening.
All right.
Thanks.
Good night, Mr. Sal. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.